Hey everybody, welcome back. Hopefully you never left. What I'd like to do today is lay the groundwork for human needs psychology, which is the model that I use to really describe people's behaviors. I mean, why not, right? That's why we're here. That's what you want to know. Is why the hell do people do what they do? Why do people do what we consider to be bizarre things? Why does it happen? What is driving them? But again, we're just laying the groundwork. We'll get into the rest of it hopefully tomorrow. Start off with there was a guy named Henry Murray in 1893 to 1988. He was, I think, the director of psychology at Harvard for about 30 years in that time. Interestingly enough, he attended one psychology lecture, hated it, said, I'm done with this, I'm never going to have anything to do with psychology when he was an undergrad. Then he went and worked for the CIA for a while because that's who was paying money at the time for things in psychological work, and he made two great contributions to psychology. Let's go ahead and get into that. First was the thematic apperception test. What this is essentially an ambiguous picture that's drawn. One that's commonly used is of a girl sitting at a dresser by herself in front of a mirror, combing her hair, and there's a phone and a notepad on the table. And then, a psychologist or psychiatrist gives this to a participant, a patient, an experimental subject, what have you, and says, tell me a story about this, explain to me what's going on in this picture. So it's a totally ambiguous stimuli. So then the way that the person interprets it and the story they tell about it then becomes very important and lends you great insight into their cognitive functioning and emotional state at the time. In other words, some obvious examples of somebody says she's sitting there and she's thinking about killing herself. That's a pretty clear sign that something's going on with that person. Or if she says, or he says about the girl, whomever, it says, she's waiting for her boyfriend to call, or she's writing in her journal about how horrible her life is, or she's just not very happy because she's lonely and sitting by herself. Can you see how all those different things, people have taken that ambiguous stimuli and twisted it around to fit their own world model? And we have a tendency of doing that with things. So that's his first, in my opinion, great contribution to psychology. Second was the idea that we meet our emotional needs in a hierarchy, and that we're led to respond a certain way under given conditions or circumstances that are relative to the needs, not necessarily relative to what's going on or relative to other people. And where we go under what he called press, what I would say emotional, it's stress. Where we go under stress is kind of who we are. An example of that, to put it in layman's terms, is, say a man doesn't feel significant in his relationship, but significance is his top need. He's not getting it from his relationship. He's going to leave the relationship to get it because he has to, because it's his top need. And if he doesn't feel significant in the relationship, there's no chance, since it's his top need, that he's going to feel a sense of emotional connection, a sense of certainty, a sense of variety, a sense of growth, or a sense of contribution. It can't happen. It just won't. So he will leave the relationship to get a sense of significance. Now, where he goes, and this will come up again, and the manner in which he leaves the relationship really depends on his personality, or his chi, I'll get into later. And I know that's strange, but we'll get into it. You see, some people would never have an affair. Some people just won't do it. That's not who they are. But they will throw themselves into work where they can feel a sense of significance. They will volunteer. If they're really smart, they'll go volunteer and do things. Now, other people will cheat. Other people will go cheat to get a sense of significance because they have to have it. And if a man is denied that by his partner, he will leave to get it. And understand that that's a pretty common pattern. Men feeling insignificant in a relationship, and of course for women it's emotional connection. I don't feel emotionally connected to him. And then if a woman doesn't feel emotionally connected to her man, then she's not going to feel a sense of certainty, meaning she's not going to trust the relationship and she's not going to trust him. She's not going to feel a sense of variety. It's going to be boring and predictable. She's not going to feel a sense of growth. They're going to be stagnant. They're going to be stuck in one place, and she's not going to feel like she's contributing to him. That's just how it works. Those are two very set common patterns in, Western society especially, but society period. So, if this is true, if we meet our needs in a hierarchy, would we see some evidence in this historically? And the answer is yes. And I go back to Zhu Zi, who's a Neo-Confucianist, and this is where I brought up the Qi. And he was in 1330 to 1200. And he came up with the idea of the Li and the Qi, Li and Qi, respectively, and said that, the Li is the underlying principle behind everything. But it depends on the Qi for its manifestation. And you'll see a lot of this harmony and balance in Eastern philosophy. It's semantic in some ways. It depends on its relationship to the Qi for manifestation, and ends up loses its perfection. Our Qi is our personality. Our Qi is what we do to meet these needs, the Li, the principle, the real reality. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's perfect. And you see it also in John 1:1, by the way. In the beginning there was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The Word became flesh and made his dwelling among us. Now, that's about 70 AD, by the way. So this is very old stuff. And the word is doesn't really mean much, but understand that John, wrote in the form of Greek. Was very influenced by Hellenistic culture and the ideas of Plato and Socrates and Aristotle, etc. And the word he used was logos, which is, yes, logic, but it's also, the eternal, the spiritual, the unchangeable, the invisible, the truth. But it depends upon, the eros. It manifested among us, eros, emotion. Yeah, it means love, eros, but it also means, emotion, physical, visible, changeable. Us, in other words, our personalities. And, the Li, the logos, the needs are not bad. They're good things. But if a man feels insignificant and is trying to meet the need of significance and goes and shoots someone in the head to meet that need, most of us would say that's a pretty bad thing. But the need he was trying to meet was never bad. But once the relationship with his personality came into a place, it lost its perfection. And human needs psychology is a great way of looking at, the way we meet the needs. How we've wired ourselves to meet those needs. And we'll get into that more next time, but I just want to lay the groundwork. Thank you for your time. God bless you. See you soon.